Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Pathfinder with Yadnika. Today in this video, we'll talk about the profitability framework. So these are very commonly used in interviews and real life business problem solving to understand why the profits are falling or how do we increase them. These are also very easy to identify and master, so let's dive into it. So before we move on to the profitability framework, let's understand how do we actually go about solving a case in an interview. So the first step is to clarify. Clarify the problem statement and reiterate it just so that you understand it very clearly along with the timelines and the objectives. Step 2 is to ask clarifying questions. Here, a 3CP approach is followed where the 3C stand for the company, the competitors, and the customers, and P stands for the product. So here you can ask questions about the company like the revenue streams or their value chain. About the competition, you can ask about their market share or the type of competition. About the customers, you can ask about the target segment. And for the products, you can ask about the product mix or the type of products. Step 3 is to structure the case. This is where the profitability framework comes into the picture and we'll talk about it shortly. Step 4 is to structure the issue. Break the problem into smaller segments and ask data wherever required. Try to be MECE here. MECE means mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. I've talked about it in the previous video. Step 5 is to give recommendations. After you have identified the problem, give recommendations to solve that problem. Step 6 is to synthesize the case. By synthesize, I mean that you mention the problem statement, a few important insights that you have gained while solving the case, and how logically did you approach it, and in the end, mention the recommendations in short. Now, let's talk about the profitability framework. So, at its core, profit is equal to revenue minus cost. To solve any profitability problem, we first identify which of these two components, revenue or cost, is driving the issue. Let's start with the revenue, which is simply revenue equals to price per unit into number of units sold. Now, price per unit can be impacted by both internal and external factors. So, internal factors might include your pricing strategy, like discounts, bundles, or premium pricing, etc. External factors might include competition, substitute products, or even government policies that affect prices in your industry. Next comes the number of units sold, which depends on both supply and demand. On the supply side, we can analyze the value chain of producers to identify any bottlenecks, that is limiting factors that may be responsible for a shortage of number of units of that product reaching the customers. The issue might be in any of these stages. Raw material or inputs, here we might have questions like is the supply reliable or is there shortage or quality issue affecting production? Production or operations, here we might have questions like are we able to produce enough to meet demand or is there any equipment downtime or process inefficiency? Distribution or delivery, can we deliver the product efficiently or are there any logistics or transportation issues? Retail or sales channels, here we might have questions like are there enough points of sales and are distribution partners motivated and effective enough, etc. On the demand side, we need to understand the customer journey, how customers become aware of the product, how they buy and use your product, etc. We'll come to that in a few minutes. Now, let's move to the cost side. Cost can be divided into value chain or operational cost and miscellaneous cost. Under operation cost, we go through every step in the value chain. Raw material include the purchase price of materials and logistic cost to bring them to production sites. Processing includes cost of running operations like the employee wages, utilities, packaging, and maintenance of equipments. Warehousing and distribution include expenses for storing goods and transporting them to retailers or customers. Marketing and after sales include cost of promoting the product, acquiring customers, and providing post purchase support. And then we have miscellaneous cost like the administrative and overheads, legal and compliance cost, IT and infrastructure, financial cost, training and HR, and other miscellaneous losses. There is another way to approach the cost side, and that is by dividing cost into fixed cost plus variable cost into number of units produced. Let's talk about the fixed cost. These are the costs that remain constant regardless of how many units you produce or sell. They don't change with production volume, like the cost of the plant, land, equipment, etc. Variable costs are the costs that change directly with the number of units produced. For example, raw materials, packaging, fuel, etc. Number of units here determine the scale of production. So far, we have analyzed the revenue and cost components, but to really understand what drives demand and customer decisions, we go on a level deeper into the customer journey. The customer journey helps us understand how customers interact with the brand from the moment they feel a need to the post purchase experience. Let's walk through each of the stage briefly. The first is need. The journey begins when a customer realizes a problem or requirement. Second is awareness. They become aware of the possible solutions either through ads, word of mouth, or digital channels. Third is accessibility. How easy is it for the customer to reach your product? It might be physically or digitally. Fourth is affordability. Can the customer afford it? This depends on internal factors like cost structure and external factors like competition, utility, or pestle influences. Pestle here stands for political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal. Fifth is availability. Is the product in stock and easy to find? Stockouts can directly hurt sales. Sixth is the ambience, the store or website experience because ambience shapes perception and satisfaction of customers. Seventh is product selection. Customers compare products, substitutes, and complementary items before deciding what to buy. Eighth is purchase action. This cover all the payment activities, final packaging, and billing, which are all necessary for conversion to happen. Ninth is post purchase. Post purchase experience includes services, reviews, feedback, or repurchase decisions. By mapping this journey, we can identify where exactly customers drop off and what levers can we pull to increase demand, hence ultimately improving the profitability. Now that we have understood the profitability framework properly, let's solve an example to get more clarity. So, the problem statement here is the Delhi Metro network is facing profitability issues, and our task is to figure out why and suggest recommendations. So, the first thing that I would do in the interview is to clarify a question, that is, since when has the issue been happening and how significant is it? Let's say the interviewer says, since the beginning, and the difference in profits is quite large. That gives us context that this isn't a sudden dip and it is a structural problem. Now, I might ask if Delhi Metro earns its revenue mainly from metro operations, and to confirm, I would ask if there are any other revenue sources as well. Let's say the interviewer says, yes, consulting services, but the issue is only in metro operations. Then I would check, is this problem across all stations or is it specific to any one of them? Let's say the interviewer says it is happening only at the Connaught Place station. Now, since it's a profitability case, I'll start with the basic structure. Profit is equal to revenue minus cost. The interviewer tells me to ignore cost for now, so I focus on the revenue. For Delhi Metro, revenue can come from three main sources: ticket sales, advertisements, and outlets or shops inside the metro station. The interviewer confirms that the problem is with the outlet revenues, so we dive deeper there. Revenue from outlets depend on three things: number of outlets, occupancy rate of those outlets, and rent per outlet. I would ask, are the number of outlets the same across all stations? The interviewer says yes, so the main difference must be coming from either rent or occupancy. Now, rents are actually higher at CP station because it is a premium location, but even with higher rent, the overall revenue is lower. That hints that the occupancy is low. Fewer tenants are taking the outlets. Now, let's think from a franchisee owner's perspective. Why would someone not want to rent an outlet here? It could be due to things like lack of awareness about tenders, complicated admin process, poor outlet location inside the station, or tough contract terms like rent, security deposit, or lock in period. Let's say the interviewer confirms everything else is fine except the rent agreement terms. Now we explore those contract terms. Rent and deposit are the same across all stations, but the lock in period, that is the minimum period the tenant has to stay, is 12 months in CP, while it's only 6 months elsewhere. That's the root cause. Businesses find it risky to commit for a whole year, so they avoid renting at CP station. We could suggest reducing the lock in period from 12 months to 6 months to align it with other stations. If that is not possible, we could offer flexible rent plans, for example, charge a slightly higher rent for a shorter lock in period and a discount rent for longer commitments. And lastly, we should monitor how this affects occupancy and overall revenue. So, to synthesize this case, I would say the case was about Delhi Metro facing profitability issues, specifically at the Connaught Place station. I started by breaking profits into revenue and cost, and since cost was stable, I focused on revenue. Among ticketing, advertising, and outlet income, the issue was with outlet revenues. Then I broke outlet revenue down into number of outlets, occupancy rate, and rent per outlet. The number and rent were fine, but the occupancy was low. On probing further, I found the root cause, that is, CP had a 12-month lock in period versus 6 months elsewhere, making tenants hesitant to rent. So, the recommendation was to reduce the lock in period or introduce flexible rent options based on contract duration. So, in short, a structural revenue issue caused by rigid contract terms, not demand, was driving the profitability gap. So that's it for today. If you have any questions or want me to cover any specific topics, please drop it in the comment section. I read and reply all of them. Also, if you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel to stay updated. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.